I mean, imagine, you're a Hispanic voter, you're afraid you'll suddenly be put into a van and carted off to a detention center, with and hope to prove your status later kind of thing when the ballots have closed. I mean, this is what Steve Bannon is dreaming about, and I hope it's still fantasy.
So, Mikey Smith in the Mirror, Kate Ferguson from The Sun on Sunday, and of course Sarah Baxter in the United States. And Sarah, let's look at another story, which is sort of making mileage where you are. It is the idea of will his MAGA team find a way to tilt the odds in the American election? Is it about preserving the integrity of elections or about doing the opposite, taking the integrity away from elections? Now, the MAGA leading light, who has been an advisor, big advisor to Donald Trump, Steve Bannon, he's been addressing this in the context of the ICE agents who are in America being accused of brutal tactics against suspected migrants, and all of this. They're very unpopular with one side of the argument, to put it mildly. Anyway, he said this.
You're damn right. We're going to have ICE surround the polls come November. We're not going to sit here and allow you to steal the country again. And you can whine and cry and throw your toys out of the pram all you want, but we will never again allow an election to be stolen.
Well, that was pretty clear, wasn't it, Sarah Baxter? ICE agents surrounding the polls. And how's that gone down?
Well, just imagine what it would be like. We had masked, armed men surrounding British polling stations. I mean, this is the situation that Americans might have to confront. And, whether or not ICE is used to try and prevent people with perfect legal right to be in the US and vote, i.e. US citizens, from actually exercising their democratic rights. I mean, imagine, you're a Hispanic voter, you're afraid you'll suddenly be put into a van and carted off to a detention center, with hope to prove your status later kind of thing when the ballots have closed. I mean, this is what Steve Bannon is dreaming about, and I hope it's still fantasy. There are two other dangerous things that Donald Trump has actually been doing. One, he's been speaking about nationalizing the elections. Now, I remember in the middle of the 2020 election when he said, "Stop the count," in the middle of the night. And he really wanted goons to go in and seize voting ballot boxes from inner city areas in places like Philadelphia, Detroit, Atlanta, and so forth. This is what he now really wants to be able to do as well, not just prevent people from having access to the polls who have the right to vote, but maybe seizing ballot boxes later to do the count themselves by people friendly to MAGA. Well, how does that sound to you? And thirdly, he recently had Tulsi Gabbard, his director of national intelligence, who's supposed to focus on foreign threats, not domestic ones, seizing alongside officials who seized records from the 2020 vote in Georgia. That Georgia vote has been relitigated millions of times, hand counted and all the rest. No fraud has been found. But Tulsi Gabbard seems to be determined to find it. It's very, very disturbing.
And when the president talks about federalizing elections, the elections are in the Constitution. They are the province of states of the Union, not the federal government. What is the fear that might mean? I guess one of the things on the list is going to be about turning up on the day and casting a vote in person and not by mail.
That's right. I mean, Donald Trump hates mail-in ballots. He thinks that enables people who are friendly to the Democrats to vote and gain access to the polls. There are certain things you can do to tighten up, like voter ID, etc.
Yeah.
Is mostly used anyway, but there are a few places where it isn't. But he's going way beyond that, and basically, he's pretty much said in advance of every election, if it doesn't go his way, it's because of fraud. And he's now insisting he won the 2024 election by a landslide, which he didn't. And, the whole thing is just would be palpably absurd if it wasn't so dangerous.
What is the gain to the president in reopening the 2020 election and sending officers into Georgia to look at the ballots that were cast in that election, unless I suppose it's part of the process of making the case that the election system can't be trusted and needs to be taken over by the federal government and that sort of thing?
Well, exactly so. This is actually part of throwing doubt again on that result in 2024. Although the joke is, Donald Trump was the president in 2020 when he claims the vote was rigged. Joe Biden was the president in 2024 and lost. The Democrats then lost. If they were good at rigging elections, you'd think they'd have won the 2024 election. And they didn't. Donald Trump won it. But no, he definitely wants to set the ground for querying any bad result in the midterm elections and, quite honestly, probably challenging it. So that if he can throw enough doubt, if it's a close run thing and he's about to lose the House of Representatives, he can actually stop the count, so to speak, the thing he tried to do before, seize ballot boxes, say we're federalizing them, we're taking this out of the hands of states who can't be trusted, and then it will go to the courts. Now, it's definitely unconstitutional to behave as he's threatening to do. Will the Supreme Court, with a heavy Republican majority, agree? Who knows? Republicans used to be in favor of states' rights, but now seem to adopt the position that they're in favor of whatever Donald Trump says.
I'm just trying to imagine the implications of seizing voting machines on the night of an election. I mean, it barely bears thinking about. Anyway, Mikey, you are such a close America watcher. What are you thinking now?
Well, I mean, I think my thoughts about the possibility of elections in America in the near future, and they are that I have long said that the 2028 election, I'd be amazed if it takes place, and the 2026 midterm elections will be extremely compromised. People have been warning about this for a while, and they've been suggesting, as is now doesn't seem unreasonable, that what's been happening in Minnesota and in other Democrat-run states where ICE have been surged in to, on the face of it, deal with illegal immigrants, but these are places that don't have a high level of immigration, let alone illegal immigration. The suggestion is they've been sent there as a dry run to start the intimidation of people and to make people scared of ICE so that they can be deployed at polling stations during the midterms as an intimidation tactic. And it's simply the suggestion is that they don't want people to turn up because they're afraid that they'll get bundled into a van and taken to a torture prison in El Salvador, which is not at this point something that events this week, things that both the president and Steve Bannon, who always says the quiet part out loud, none of that has been overtaken by what's happened this week. Yeah.
Can I ask a question, Sarah? I've seen, like everyone else, those images of ICE out on the street, which is terrifying. I think they're really terrifying to a British audience who are not used to seeing, so-called like immigration enforcement officers, cops being so heavily armed. I mean, they're absolutely terrifying. They look like they're at the front line of Ukraine or some kind of war zone. But obviously there has been a big backlash in America to that. And I just am wondering, does it look like we're going to see Trump particularly row back more in terms of the deploying of ICE? Or will they be used in this tactic? So, has the backlash been so big that he's going to have to really scale them back?
Before you answer that, Sarah, I just want to play you this. This is the so-called border czar, Tom Homan. He described himself in that way as border czar, and he announced the withdrawal of 700 ICE agents from the epicenter of this controversy, now Minnesota. Have a listen.
We have made significant progress under the direction of President Trump, working with state and local officials here in Minnesota. We currently have an unprecedented number of counties communicating with us now and allowing ICE to take custody of illegal aliens before they hit the streets. The state prisons already cooperate with ICE on this coordinated transfer of custody, and we thank them for that partnership, and we plan to do more with them. Given this increase in unprecedented collaboration, and as a result of the need for less law enforcement officers to do this work in a safer environment, I have announced effective immediately, we will draw down 700 people effective today, 700 law enforcement personnel.
So, Sarah, what is going on here? Is there more cooperation between state and local law enforcement and authorities and the federal government and the federal agents of ICE?
What you're witnessing is a climb down. America is still a democracy, and people power is behind this. Tom Honan has basically said that ICE is going to revert to its mission of going after the worst of the worst, i.e. criminals who are in the US illegally and deported. There's quite a bit of support for deporting them. What there wasn't is just going and chasing, arresting kids, chasing their parents, making people hide, comparisons to Anne Frank in her attic, having to hide because they're afraid of getting snatched when ICE is in the neighborhood. But you know what? 700 agents are being withdrawn. 2,000 are going to remain in Minneapolis. And as Mike said, Minneapolis is not a center of huge number of illegal immigrants. So this is very much a bid to take over Democratic-run cities. And yes, there is going to be more cooperation with Tom Honan if he's serious about just going after the worst of the worst. But it also shows that if, Trump's always testing what he can get away with. We saw that magnified a zillion times on January the 6th, 2021, when the storming of the Capitol. And at that time, there was lots of talk then. He was being advised by certain people, why don't you use the Insurrection Act? Why don't you, stop the vote, seize ballot boxes, etc. He didn't have the nerve to do it then, and he won't have the nerve to do it in future if there's sufficient resistance. Will there be? Let's see.
Well, that gets you back to your point, Mikey, where you're saying you don't expect to see a general election in 2028. Now, that's the stuff of Netflix drama. It is difficult to imagine, but you do believe that's maybe the destination?
I mean, it's difficult to imagine, but not if you look back at what Donald Trump tried to do last time round. Last time he lost an election, he refused to accept the result. I would be stunned if he allows an election to take place now, because he would have to leave office anyway, and I think he has no intention of leaving office at the end of his term.
Okay.
I'm just kind of open-jawed, really. Like, I don't know. I don't actually know what to say to that. I don't know if I have an opinion on how likely that is. Certainly, if that were the case, then that would be jaw-dropping. But I'm afraid I don't.
But
I'm afraid I've supported this view for a long time, that there'll be some sort of incident that means that Donald Trump, invokes some kind of emergency powers around the time when he's supposed to be leaving office that means that he somehow doesn't, or that he postpones the election. I don't think he's going to try and stand for a constitution-breaking third term, although Steve Bannon, who, by the way, is in the Epstein files but is acting like he's got nothing to hide, Pache, my point earlier, I don't think he's going to actually try and run again for an unconstitutional third term. I think he'll find a way to delay things.
Yeah, and again, I'll just imagine the way that will play in the streets, the cities, and the states of the United States of the Union. The uproar, which you say has driven the federal government to step back, to retreat over the deployment of ICE officers in Minneapolis. It would be a tea party compared to an operation. The reaction to an operation like that.
Yes, so that's why it comes down to what I was saying before, that people need to be aware of the fact that Trump is constantly testing people's resistance. And, with every step he takes, people, he tries a bit harder. Now he's stepping back a little bit. He even said a little bit, not that much, in Minneapolis. He used the word a bit.
Yeah.
He tends to step back, try again. We've seen this with Greenland as well. Has he really given up his ambitions for it?
Yeah.
We don't know. But he did back down in the face of concerted pressure. He is capable of changing his mind and backing down. So it's worth calling out what we think he's up to.
And how much is this conversation a part of the national conversation where you are in the United States? I mean, I see it online. I see activists, I see thinkers, I see writers on the, as it were, the centre and the centre left of American politics, just airing these very thoughts. How far is it there in the conversation you see on the networks every day?
Well, not as much as, maybe in Britain in some ways. But on the other hand, let's think about those No Kings protests that took place last autumn. That brought out hundreds of thousands of people on the streets of major cities and actually small communities as well, all over the United States. So, there is vigilance about preserving the American Constitution, preserving American democracy. And I think, yeah, I still have a great faith in the American people, in their ability to do the right thing and choose the right thing. And in the end, I think this will limit the extent of Trump's ambition. But he feels unstoppable.